This tutorial is giving you several options on how to calculate without using a scientific calculator on your in your hand, or even for those of you who have a graphing calculator, you could still use this. There's lots of different ways you can do your calculations. I'm going to start in 4C because that's when we start getting into some of the more complicated formulas. So what I have here is the savings plan formula from 4C, and I'm going to walk through how you actually program the formula into your Word document. And that's an advantage in several of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is, here's my formula, but I'm going to show you how I actually did that. So we'll go into Insert, and we're going to insert an equation. Now you'll notice there's a drop-down menu. This drop-down menu has some built-in equations for you that came with Microsoft Word. After you start using maybe the savings plan formula over and over, once you get it programmed in, you can insert a new equation and it'll come into your drop-down menu. So before you do that though, you have to press the equation button and it brings up your options here at the top. So now we have all of these different tools that we can use. There's the fraction. The script would be for, in our case, mostly exponents. The radical and the rest of these you probably won't be needing. The bracket you will. Okay, so the first thing I want to start doing is just typing A equals, and you'll see it's coming up in my equation editor, and I'm going to type in PMT for payment. Then I can come up here and use my brackets and pick out the different types. I'm going to pick out this one first because that's a part of my formula. But I also need inside there parentheses. I have two different ways of doing that. I can, of course, I need to move my arrow over. So I tabbed over with my arrow to the left so that the inside is highlighted. I can come back here and pick parentheses, or I can just press Shift 9 to get my next set of parentheses. And you'll see how that I can close it off as well. So I do Shift 6 and then I'm going to do 1 plus APR. Now again, I could use my fraction button here, or a faster way is to press Shift, not Shift, just the button under the question mark, APR over N. Now it doesn't look pretty yet. If I press the space bar, however, it changes it for me. And so it's just an extra step to come up to do fraction. However, if it's not working for you, throw in the fraction and use your arrows to navigate within that fraction. Now I'm going to press Shift 0 for the second set of my parentheses, and again I'm going to press the space bar so the whole thing is within those parentheses. Do you see how those parentheses got bigger? So that it included all of those instead of the regular size of the parentheses. Okay, now I could come up here to script and give myself a superscript or the exponent. However, if I press Shift 6 to give myself a caret, that's also indicative of an exponent. And I'm going to put NY, and again, press the space bar, and it formats it for me. So it's kind of a faster way. And then subtract 1. Now I'm going to use my arrow button to go out of the parenthesis, but not too far that you go out of the equation editor. You saw how I did that. Just pressing over to the left will get you back in. Okay, and now I want to divide. So I'm going to divide, and I need, actually, I'm going to show you how to make sure this is divided correctly. So I'm going to highlight this part. This is what I want on the top of the fraction. So I'm going to come up here, oops, it got me out of there, so I'm going to press the equation tools, go into fraction. I like mine to look like this, and there we go. It puts it over the fraction. I'm going to press the down arrow button, and it gets me down there. And now I want APR over N. Again, I could use my fraction button if I'd like, or since I'm on the bottom and I'm pretty sure that the format will be okay, I'm going to type APR, the button with the question mark for your divide sign over N, then press the space bar, and it gives me my fraction on the bottom. Okay, so now that we've learned how to type it into Equation Editor, this is really convenient. Now you can go back in and you can insert this into your common equations, and then all you have to do is drop down that drop down menu. Okay, another thing that's really convenient is that once you have this up and going, to show your work in a Word document or on a discussion board, all you have to do is paste it, type it in, but just like we do by hand, you leave the first one there, which is just the formula, so you can always refer back to it. And what's kind of convenient compared to doing it by hand is that once you're here, you're not going to make the mistake, hopefully, as you replace different items here. You just highlight it and put in what you need. And then for your next step, let's actually move to the next one so I can show you. Find the balance after 6 months of making monthly payments of $100 into an account with a 12% APR. So the first thing I want this equation so that I know that I'm using the savings plan formula equation. Then I paste it in again, and then I can start substituting what I know. The payment is $100 a month. The APR was given to me as 12%. Change that to a decimal as 0.12. N is the number of times I'm making my payments. So this is monthly payments. So I'm going to put it over 12. And I'm going to replace the other n's here. Oops, there we go, with 12. And this n with a 12. There we go. And the APR I know was 0.12. And I'm going to come up here and change my y. My y in this case is not even a full year. It's actually 6 months. So we're going to times this by 0.5. Now, we could put a times sign here. You don't have to. It's up to you. One advantage of doing that is when we copy and paste it into Microsoft Excel, it'll automatically be there. And that's up to you for one of our other for the Excel part. So now that we know we have it all typed in correctly and it's all looking good, I have my first option. I can copy and paste and bring up my Excel document here. If I want Excel to calculate like a calculator, I need to start any cell, because any of these will work, with an equal sign. Then I'm going to do Control V, and it has it all out. The advantage to typing it here first is that I know it's perfect, and you'll see all of these brackets and parentheses. Sometimes that gets confusing, and you actually have to do that when we use a graphing calculator. So it's to our advantage. Now, one thing we do have to do is we have to take out the brackets, the square ones, because Microsoft Excel doesn't know what it is. So we just have to embed a bunch of parentheses. So I'm going to delete this and do Shift 9, and then find its partner, which was over here after the 1, and I'm going to do Shift 0 to partner it up. And you'll see as I move my arrow over this, it'll kind of highlight for a moment the partners in the parentheses. Every parenthesis needs a partner. You see how they get highlighted just for a moment? Okay, so I'm going to double check and make sure everything has a partner. Occasionally when you copy and paste from Word into Excel, it'll have these weird brackets. You'll want to delete those and also replace those with parentheses. Now Microsoft Excel also will not acknowledge if you don't have a time sign there. It doesn't know what to do in between the 100 and the parenthesis. You need to tell it to multiply, which is why you can put it here. It doesn't matter on Word, it just matters in Excel. Now that everything's in here and it looks good, we can press enter, and there we go. And that actually is the answer that we got earlier, and that's the first one, using Microsoft Excel. Now we can use our calculator, and I've given the YouTube channel right there, or you can copy and paste it or use the link given in iLearn. Okay, so here is our calculator. Once you download this to your desktop, you can start using it just like you would any graphing calculator. The disadvantage here is that you have to type it in with all of the parentheses that can get confusing on these larger equations, but I'll go ahead and show you how to do it. So we want 100 times, so we're going to do 100. Now, the calculator does not need the times sign that Excel does. If you want to just get in the habit, go ahead and do the times, but we can go ahead and just do the parentheses if we would like. Another tip here with this emulator is you can use your number pad on the side of your keyboard just like you would, and it types it in. So I'm going to use my keyboard now, and oh, I need one more parenthesis, by the way. So that one you actually have to type up here. I need 1 plus, so I'm going to do 1 plus using my keyboard, 0.12. The only disadvantage here is that you have to go slow because sometimes it'll miss a number that you are actually pressing. Now I need to close my parenthesis because that's the first part. So you see I have my 2 parentheses here, and it doesn't have the brackets, which is okay. It's just like Excel. We close the parenthesis. Now we need to raise it to 12 times 0.5. This is the exponent button, also known as the caret. And then I need to raise it times 12 times 0.5. I can't just type in 12 times 0.5. What will happen is this is saying I'm going to raise it to 12 and then times that whole thing by 0.5. So I need to give myself another set of parentheses to do the 12 times 0.5, and that make sure that that whole thing is the exponent. Now I need to subtract 1. I'm out of the exponent, so I'm okay just to subtract 1, and then close my parenthesis. Okay, so that's the first part. Now I need to double check like I did in Excel and make sure they all have an opening and closing set of parentheses because I'm moving to the bottom and I don't need those kind of mixed up into the top. So I have this set of parentheses here, the outside, one here and one here. Okay. Now I need the next set, which would be here and here. I have it at the 1 and after the 12. Good. Now I need to make sure that that exponent, good, both of those are in, so all my parentheses are connected. Now I need to divide by 0.12 over 12. Now some of you are thinking, let's just do that in our head to save us the parentheses. You can do that. I'm just going to show you in case you don't get something nice. So again, I need parentheses because that's the whole bottom, and I need that divided separately. And if I weren't to put the parentheses, if I would just do 0.12 divided by 12, what would happen is I would divide this by 12 and then divide it by 12, and you just want to make sure that everything's in nice. So 0.12 divided by 12 and then close the parenthesis. So you can see how it would be advantageous to get this all in Word so that you know it's exactly where it is and you don't have to try and memorize all those parentheses and make sure. It takes a little longer, but again, it verifies our exact answer of $615.20. Okay, so that was the second one. And if you have a graphing calculator on your own, you can watch that again and just make sure that you're getting your parentheses in correct. Okay, now the next one is using the Excel formulas, which are very advantageous. So we're going to go back into Excel. I'm going to come down here to our payment formula. And instead of memorizing these equations, we can just use the built-in function future value. So I'm going to do equals. Now future value will always be a negative value in Excel because it's assuming that you're making some sort of a loan payment. Because I want it to be positive, because this is finding a balance in an account, it's not money taking away from me, I'm going to do a negative just to counteract the automatic built-in version of future value. So I have future value. Once I type in FV, I do Shift 9 for the parenthesis, and it brings up my the different things that I need, and it kind of prompts me as to what to do next. So it needs me to type in the rate. So in this instance, we're actually going to type things in where if you wanted to, you could put, actually let's get out of there, we could actually come up and say we have a payment of $100 and we have the APR of, and you don't have to label them, that just makes it nice, 0.12. We're making how many N per, so we're doing 12 numbers per or 12 payments per year, and then we'll put years. In this case it's 0.5. So we could do cell references, which is advantageous as well. The first way I'm going to show you is just typing in the numbers. So we'll come back to this second part later. So we want to type in the rate, which is 0.12, but don't forget, every time you see rate, you need to divide it by the number of payments. In this case, we're making monthly payments, which means I need to divide this by 12. And it actually mirrors what happens in our equations over here, the formulas. You'll see every time you have the APR, it's always divided by n. So in this case, divided by 12. Now I need a number of periods. Oh, that should just be n. I'll change that in a minute. So number of periods, this means that I have 12 payments per year. So I need to times it by the number of years. In our case, it's only 0.5. Comma, to move me to payment, and you'll see how it's bold now. And I come up here, or I can come over here, and the payment was $100. I don't have a present value in this account. If I did, if I had started with some number, I could put in that I was starting with $5,000, and it actually takes place of using two formulas from 4B and 4C. In this case, I didn't start with anything. I can put 0, or I could just leave this. These last two things are in brackets, and that means that they are not necessary to calculate, but if you needed them, you can also put them in. The PV is for present value. The type is referring to whether you're making your payments at the beginning or the end. All throughout our class, they will be the same, which is at the end, and so you don't have to worry about that. I can go ahead and close my parenthesis by doing Shift 0, or I can leave it. There are two different ways. If your version of Excel demands that it has a closed parenthesis, then go ahead. However, I am done, so I'm just going to press Enter. And you'll see it didn't matter whether I typed out the formula or if I used the built-in Microsoft formula. Either way, I got the same answer. The other option we were talking about is using this. I'm just going to put N here since I made that mistake. The other one is using cell references. Again, I'm going to start with negative future value, and I want it to calculate, so make sure you get your equal sign in there. And instead of typing in 0.12, I'm going to cell reference 0.12, divide it by n, which is here. So I cell reference. I just click there, click once. Now do a parenthesis or a comma. Number of periods. This is 12 times a year times 0.5 of the year, comma. The payment is $100, and I don't have a present value in this this question, so I can just press Enter. And again, same thing. So I have different ways of using Excel to work like a calculator. I can type in the formula. I can copy and paste from Word. I can use the negative future value formula and type in the numbers, or I can use a cell reference in Excel. The last option is Microsoft Word. They have done a new add-on for the equation editor in Microsoft Word. You can use this formula here, or this address here, copy and paste that. I think I also gave it to you in the Notes to Instructor. Once you download, you'll notice a new button up here called Mathematics. Instead of just inserting an equation, going into Mathematics also gives you equation and a couple new ones. Right here, compute. So if I wanted to compute this, I would come here and highlight this one. So I want this formula to compute, and I'm going to come up here and say compute. And this would solve for A. So I don't want it to solve for A, I want it to actually calculate. So I'm going to highlight this stuff. Oops, that's not what I wanted. And I want it to compute, so I'm going to copy and paste, and now I want it just to compute this. Press compute and it would calculate, and there's our number, which is the answer, $615.20. So Microsoft Word is actually the fastest way. Now that you know how to enter in your equation into Word, you just have to tell it what to calculate, give yourself a new, so copy and paste that, and it gives you the answer, which is very fast. So now that we've done that on the first example, let's go ahead and try the next one. Let's do the savings plan. So we want to find the payment. We have our different ways. I'm not going to go ahead and go through the calculator way again because that was the longer way. I'm going to show how to put it into Microsoft Word and then paste it into Excel. You could also just type it into Excel like you would the calculator with all of the parentheses, but this way it's nice because you know that you have it in the exact format of what needs to go where. Okay, so this is, it's taking our savings plan formula and it solves it for payment. And we want to, we have a 7% APR, we want to save $100,000 in 18 years, and we want to make these as monthly payments. So what I've done is here's our formula. Let's walk through typing it in again. So I'm going to insert equation, or if you've now done the add-on, you can go to mathematics and also do equation. And once you can come down here and insert a new equation so that it actually comes up every time. I didn't do that because I make my video lectures and I need to show you how to type it in. But once you've done that, you can just go up there and it'll be in your drop-down menu and you can just pop it up whenever you need, which is also very convenient. Okay, so we're going to insert our equation and I'm just going to type PMT and equals, and then I need a big fraction, so I can start with my big fraction. In the other one, we didn't do the fraction until the end. It's up to you. There's lots of different ways. Just navigate it with your arrow buttons, and sometimes it takes a little playing to get used to it. So now I have A, and then I need to times this, and I'm going to put the times sign. I don't have to in Word, but if I were copying this into Excel, it's nice just to have it there. And then I need APR over N, so I can do APR over N. Now I could have done my fraction button up here, but just doing my divide sign on my keyboard and pressing a space, it makes it look nice already. I do need my brackets though, and I can do this so that it looks exactly like it would in the book, or I can do my sets of parentheses so I don't have to fix it in Excel. So I can do my parentheses, arrow over, and do a second set of parentheses, or you can just use your Shift 9 and Shift 0 to do your parentheses. It's up to you. So now I'm going to arrow back over and do 1 plus, and then I need APR over N, so I'm going to do APR, and to speed it up, I just do over, N, and do the space button. There we go. I'm going to arrow out, and I need it raised to, so Shift 6, and I need NY, again pressing the space bar, we'll put that up where it needs to be, minus 1. And there we go. So now this one looks like the book. This one I just used a second set of parentheses. It's the exact same thing, but when I copy and paste this into Excel now, it'll understand what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this part because we're going to come back in using Word, and then it won't ask me if I want to solve for payment, but it'll actually calculate what I put in here. Okay, so now I need A, which is 100,000, got 5 zeros. The APR they gave me was 7%, changing that to a decimal is 0.07. N is 12 because I'm making monthly payments. The APR, we need to change that again to 0.07. N, we have 12 payments up here. Again, 12 times, in this case, Y is not half a year, it's 18 years. Okay, so now that's good to go. I'm going to highlight this, copy. So I right-clicked, go down on my menu to copy, bring this up, Let's just minimize that a little bit so we can see them both. And do, I'm going to come down here because it's a separate equation and do equals, Control V to paste it in. I don't have any of the weird brackets that sometimes come up, and everything looks good. And that gives us our 232 and 17 cents. Now if I want to make this look like calculate, now I have done a lot of research, and apparently there are some flaws in Microsoft Word in using the new mathematics tool. For some reason, having a large exponent will not allow the new version of Microsoft Word to always appropriately calculate these finance formulas. So if I were to occasionally, if you come to compute and calculate once again, occasionally it will then give you the decimal. In this case, because of the large exponent, it's not working. I think this is just a flaw until they come out with a new version. So the best option I would have is to go ahead and copy and paste this into Excel. And again, to prevent having Excel freak out with these brackets, instead of using those brackets, you can do a double set of parentheses and make sure that you put a multiplication sign here and also here, and then copy and paste this into Excel. Then you don't have to worry about the issues from transferring it to Word to Excel. So in this case, this one didn't work with the Microsoft Word version, but you can still do this, and if you just come up with this problem, try calculating it a second time, which should, on many of them, change it to a decimal. In this case it won't, so go ahead and our option would be Microsoft Excel. And there we go. So in this case, the fast way would be to replace these brackets to make it look like it would in the book and just give it a second set of parentheses, because that's how Microsoft Excel works. And it's the same as your graphing calculator if you have one of those. Okay, let's just walk through another one really quickly to see how things will work using this one. So this is a formula that comes from 4D, and it's the loan payment formula. And our first problem says that we have a loan of $2,300. The APR is 21%. Now you'll notice that this is a much larger percent than the savings plan formulas. When you have a loan, they charge you much more, a much larger APR than they give you when you invest. And you want to pay this off within 1 year, so that gives us our time. What would your monthly payment be? So we're going to come up here. We want to find the payment. The principal is what we're starting with on our loan. That was given to us as $2,300. So a fast way is just to copy. Once you have this written in Word, copy and paste that, and then replace each of these with the things that are given to you. I'm actually going to go through typing this equation in a second time just for one more review, and also I'm going to type it in, instead of using these brackets, I'm going to use the second set of parentheses so that it copies and pastes into Excel a lot nicer. So what we're going to do, we can come to Insert, Equation. Once you do the Microsoft download though, the upgrade, it should come up. Oh, it used to come up right there, so we're just going to come here and insert an equation, and I want to just type in PMT equals, and then I can set up this fraction bar now so that I can work on the top, or I can come to it later. I'm just going to go ahead and come up and just get it set up because that's the big part of the problem. Now using my arrow over to the left, it gets me to the bottom of the fraction, and then arrow once over to the left again or up. Either way, it'll take you to the top. Now I want principal, and I don't have to put a time sign here because we know that without anything in between this number and the parenthesis that it's multiplication. But I know I want to be timesing or copying and pasting this into Excel, so I'm going to go ahead and put the time sign so that I don't have to do that later, and Excel will not understand what's going on. Then I'm going to do Shift 9 for my parenthesis, and then type APR, and then I'm going to use the divide sign. You can either do that on your number pad or it's the same button as your question mark, N. Close your parenthesis with Shift 0. Now you'll notice that those parentheses don't quite match or they aren't quite big enough. So if you press a space bar, it'll make it format better. Now I can press to the right arrow button or the down arrow button. Either way, it'll get us to the bottom of the fraction. Now, here's the difference. This bracket here is what it looks like in the book, but we're going to copy and paste into Excel. So I'm just going to go ahead and give us parentheses. And I have two ways of doing this. I can either come up here and get myself a set of parentheses, or I can just do Shift 9. Either way. Now, sometimes I find that just using my keyboard works best, and it's faster. Then 1 and the minus sign, then Shift 9 again, and then I do 1 plus, and the same thing we did before for the fraction, APR, the divide sign with the question mark button, over N, and then I'm going to Shift 0, and then press the space bar, and it'll make my parentheses match. Now I need the exponent. I can come up here and get a script button for the superscript. Now notice if I press this, it'll give me the bottom and the top. I'll show you what it does. So I don't want that. I'm going to delete it. If I wanted to use that button, I would highlight what I want to have the script and then go to the script button. And you'll see it only gave me the exponent. Now I could, if I delete, it'll just delete everything. The other option is, instead of putting the script up there, you can do Shift 6 and then type in what you want and then press the space bar and it'll just pop it up for the formatting. But since I already have it there and I can't delete it now without deleting everything that it's the base of it that's being raised to the exponent, I'm just going to leave it and do negative and y. There we go. Now I need to close my parentheses. Whoops. Now when I did that, it put a parenthesis up in my exponent. I don't want that, so I'm going to press delete and press my over button, the right arrow, and that's going to take me out of the exponent. Now I can do my parenthesis and then press the space bar again, and those set of parentheses will format nicely. There we go. Now this is wonderfully formatted to just copy and paste into Excel once I get in my numbers. And I already have it down here, so I know you can see that. I'm just going to copy and paste once again just to show work and throw in what I know. So the loan was $2,300. APR was given as 21%, so I'm going to delete APR and replace that with 0.21, changing it to the decimal, and then using my down arrow button and delete for N. N was a number of payments a year, so I'm going to put 12 because it's a monthly payment, and I'm going to use my down arrow button to navigate here, and then over to the left, I'm going to change that N and do 12, and then up arrow. And if you don't want to use the arrows, you can also use your cursor, and then delete APR and put 0.21, and then just using my cursor, come over here and put 12, and then I'm going to put times, even though I don't have to, times y, which is 1 year. With doing this by hand, you would know that it's 12 times 1. If you were to just type in 12 and 1, it might look like 121. So it's best either way. But in putting it there, Microsoft Excel will then understand what to do, and we can just copy and paste this in now. And I'm going to minimize that. We'll come down here. Oops. Press enter instead of clicking on another cell. Press equals because I want it to calculate like a calculator. And if I had put the equal sign here or copied and pasted that when I made my work, I wouldn't have to do this here. But I do need it. And I'm going to just double check inside here, make sure everything looks right. It's 2,300 times, and I have my parentheses. And one way of double checking to make sure your parentheses are there is just scrolling back and forth over them, and it'll highlight the parentheses. Okay, so I have my 0.21 over the 12. Now you'll see that in copying and pasting this, it also gave a second set of parentheses around the 0.21. That's okay, I can do that. And I'm not going to worry about it. Just double checking here. I have the black ones that match, the green ones, and it's matching what I have over here. And it threw in a couple extras, but that's okay. I don't see any of the weird brackets. Everything has a times sign or an addition sign or division sign, so all of the mathematics are there, all of the operations. Press enter, and there we go. And you'll notice it matches. Then I can come here, right click, go to Format Cell, and then I can change this to currency as well. And we're going to try the other version over there. So change that to currency. Okay, then I'm going to copy this. And just to show my work, I'm going to press equals, Control V for paste, and it throws it in, and it's even currency. I love that part. Now the other option we have is we're going to see if it works using the new version of Word. Sometimes it doesn't. That's okay. You have your other options, which would be Excel or your graphing calculator. So I just copied this part. I don't need the payment part because it'll ask me when I come up to compute if I want to calculate or solve for the variable. It's already solved for the variable, so I just want the working part. The same thing as what you would type into your calculator. Press calculate. Okay, now we're just going to cross our fingers and hope that pressing it a second time will also give us the decimal. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's just something they're going to have to work out through their reviews. And there we go. So sometimes it works, and in this case, because my exponent down here isn't huge, it was just the number 12, and it wasn't, the previous one was 12 times 18, and that was kind of large. So there we go. I put a dollar sign and I can highlight that to show that's my answer. And so now that is your 3 different ways of typing this in and calculating. So you can use Microsoft Word, Excel, and in Excel, if we wanted to type it in, instead of using the typed in version using the equation editor, we would type it in just like this. The only problem is with this and with your graphing calculator is that you do have to make sure that you have all your parentheses in the right spot. And so you would have to go through and make sure you have a set of parentheses here, set of parentheses here, and then what we don't have written here is a set of parentheses around the exponent so that that whole thing is in the exponent. And sometimes it gets a little confusing. So I kind of like this so that you can see exactly what's going on and then pasting it in here. But if you would like to, feel free to do this, or also type in the formula and then you can just cell reference like we did before. All right, I hope that this tutorial helped you figure out that you have lots of different options in calculating, and maybe even give you a couple of ideas on how to maybe speed up some of your homework so you don't always have to copy and paste into Excel, but on these rare occasions, on this one where you have the large exponent, it does kind of fritz out and it won't calculate it. Something that Microsoft Excel is going to have to go back and figure out. But I have gone through this and asked many colleagues, and it's just a Microsoft Word issue. It's not yours. So if it does do this, go ahead and just always copy and paste it back into Excel. All right. Those are your methods. Good luck on your homework. Money, I can right click, come down to Format Cell, and change it to currency. And then I can copy and paste this into my document, and there is my answer. Now I can also use the built-in version of Microsoft Word, and I'm going to come in here and copy and paste this. There we go, and then I can come up to Mathematics, and I'm going to change my decimal places and press Compute.